and even the way the controls feel is a little bit more... Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we got a 2024 Mazda CX-5 Turbo in this beautiful Soul Crystal Red that we all love, and my 2023 Mazda CX-50 Turbo Premium Plus. So one model year differentiates them, but also this is the highest possible level you can get with the CX-50. Turbo Premium Plus is the top, whereas the Turbo on the CX-5 is the second highest level. They have a Turbo Signature, which comes above. Now, some things to keep in mind. We are going to be talking a lot about ride quality differences. This comes with 20-inch wheels at the highest trim. On lower trims, it comes with, I think, 17s or 18s. This comes with 19-inch wheels, so a little bit more sidewall here. That's going to help soften the ride. But this also has softer suspension, which we'll get to shortly. Black wheels, whereas with the Turbo Signature, you get silver, and you also change these black trim pieces to body paint color. Here you have true plastic cladding. Love it or hate it, it is very polarizing. I think it fits the aesthetic. Very rugged, more muscular. CX-50 is lower, wider, longer. So a little bit more sporty. CX-5 is a little bit more traditional. And you see that in the styling too. This looks mean and aggressive. Even though it has these fake vents, I think it still works. Looking at the trunk space, both are of course motorized. Although you'll see that this has a button to close it, but also to lock it. This one only has close. Now, this is a little bit wider and a little bit longer, which I was able to fit my bike here without issue. I took my bike, put it in the back here, and it does fit, but just barely. It's kind of pushed against. I need to do a little bit more delicate maneuvering to make sure it clears the tailgate here. So I would give this a win with the cargo space. The other kind of annoying thing is that to actually fold these seats up and down, I'm not sure why, but I cannot be in my seating position. And same with the passenger, you have to move the seats up to actually get these to fold flat. And you can see this is really pushing into it, right? So I'm not sure if the pivot point to the seat is reduced such that you have less legroom, or if it's just that the headrest to the pivot point is extended. Maybe this is like a longer backrest or a taller headrest or whatever. But that is one thing that a little bit annoying, because over here you don't have that issue. You're able to clear this, actually store some things there just fine. The rest of the styling, more city, urban, modern, a little less polarizing, a little more rugged, outdoorsy, adventurous, plastic cladding. I think this thing looks so mean. It has a beautiful stance. The front grille, they just nailed the styling. I love the way it looks, but you be the judge of that. One of the reasons I went for this versus some other CUVs is literally just the styling. But both very handsome vehicles. Gotta love this red too. Now, getting into the interior, same thing. Traditional is the word that really comes up for me. So, the design language, a little bit more traditional. Compared to the CX-50, I would say it feels a little bit, it feels like it came out sooner, right? The CX-50 seems a little bit more contemporary. This is more traditional. Everything from the way it's laid out, right? This is the prior generation of their infotainment control. And rather than having 4 quadrants, you have like 3 buttons up here, 1, 2 down here. This is a lot taller and narrower. It doesn't, you know, they've improved it in the more recent versions. This is still great though. The cup holders being here is not ideal, because if you actually have some cups, then you can't quite reach this without having to reach over them. And even this being so down low, you really had to bend your wrist a lot. It just didn't feel as ergonomic versus the CX-50. Here with the HVAC, thank you for physical buttons, but you'll see that this feels also a little bit more traditional. The icons, the way that you just have, you know, standard push buttons. We have these toggles in the CX-50, which we'll show you after. The vents, the styling, the build quality is comparable. There's actually a few things here that are a little bit nicer. The door cards in the CX-50, they're plastic, the grab handles here, which even on the higher trim, it just seems a little bit questionable. A little bit higher quality here, but keep in mind this is the Turbo, not the Turbo Signature, so we don't get the Napa leather and the highest quality of materials. But you are saving some money. This is around $38K, that's around $42. Same thing with the steering wheel. It feels a little bit more traditional and maybe even prior gen. So this does not have the 360 cam. The The turbo signature does. But even the camera is lower res and not as high of quality, which I hear does not change in the turbo signature, and it's more just a matter of this being on an older platform. So the cameras, I guess they haven't updated to the same clarity and resolution as the CX-50. Okay, so the thing that really struck me was the driving difference, because these two cars, very, very polarizing, guys, very polarizing. Some people love the sportiness of the CX-50. Some people find it intolerably stiff and prefer this. And again, kind of going back to that whole theme of being traditional, this is much softer. And even the way the controls feel is a little bit more what you'd expect from a CUV. That vehicle is going to surprise you because it is sporty, it is engaging, it is fun to drive. These are both powered by the same 2.5 liter inline 4-cylinder turbocharged, and for what they are, they have plenty of get up and go. But when you're driving this, the first thing you'll notice is that the steering is not nearly as precise and tight and direct. You have a little bit of this on-center ambiguity. It's a much lighter rack as well. And I don't find myself having as much confidence with what the steering wheel is telling me. There's far less feedback. And also what I'm even inputting into the car, right? Sometimes I have a slightly delayed response. It's not as sharp of a front end. The suspension is noticeably softer and more comfortable. It does ride a little bit better than that CX-50, especially when you're going over uneven bumps. That's when you're going to notice the independent rear suspension more so than the torsion beam. Apart from that, you don't really notice the geometry differences, but this is tuned softer. So going over bumps, you still feel it. It still has a nice Mazda, it's not trying to totally isolate you from the road. It still has that Mazda communication. But I was surprised how much the car will dive and roll in the corners. So I feel like you're getting a marginal improvement in the ride comfort. It is small but noticeable, but I think you're paying a larger price in the chassis and handling dynamics, because this is not nearly as sharp, not as confidence inspiring when you're pushing it at higher speed. Let's say you're taking a corner a bit spiritedly. Don't feel as comfortable here. You're getting a lot of body roll. The steering input is not as immediate. Slingshot day out here in Vegas, it looks like. Oh, there's a CX-5. But I think Mazda's really smart to have both these vehicles because they're very similar, but different enough. Because I can totally see myself, not just see myself, I do own and love my CX-50, but I don't love this in the same way. But I do see this fitting a certain demographic. Someone that just wants a little bit more of a traditional, comfortable, compact CUV, right? The seats in this car are definitely more comfortable. The interior, I think the styling, the CX-50 is going to have a vent right here in the middle, which is a little bit off-putting to some people. I don't really mind it, but if you want a more traditional layout, this is definitely more familiar. This feels a little bit closer in the direction of what Honda and Toyota do with their CUVs as well. Whereas the CX-50 feels like a much larger departure. This is also a little bit quieter. So going at speed, we're at 65. It's a nice and quiet in here. I think it's more quiet than the CX-50. And now we're gonna see how it compares to the CX-50. And now we're in the CX-50. One thing I forgot to mention is that the wireless charger in the CX-5 is actually in the front here. And when you put your phone in there, even with a big camera bump on the iPhone 15 Pro, charges just fine. Whereas with the CX-50, I've never had this wireless charger work. Not with this camera at least, with other cameras that don't have the bump, it works fine. But I've even brought it into the Mazda dealership and they weren't able to fix that. It looks like it's just an issue with the design of this wireless charger. So I'm not sure if they fixed that or not, if they updated that for the 2024 model year. But getting in here, this is a way more modern, it's a different interior design language, right? So this, I think, is very polarizing. Some people don't like the stitching. They say it looks like a horror movie. I think it looks totally fine. Baseball stitching, right? Got a vent here, which, again, some people like, some people don't. The HVAC, I love this. You have these, I guess it's not really toggles, but you have a shelf of buttons and these buttons below. A little bit thinner lines. Even the icon for in your HUD for blind spot monitors when there's a car in your blind spot, it's a little bit, it just feels more modern. They have, it's like a smaller, tighter kind of icon, and we got 360 in this, is the top trim. Some of the materials, again, in the Turbo Premium Plus versus the Turbo, not really a fair comparison. That's what we got to work with today. A lot of the touch points are nicer. Like the steering wheel, really nice leather here. Love these leather seats. You know, the grab handle here is plastic, which fits the ruggedness, but doesn't fit the luxuriousness that they're going for, the premiumness. You know what I mean? But overall, I think Mazda did a fantastic job blending ruggedness with luxury here. So this is my first time driving this in about a week. I would say it is a little noisier at 65 miles an hour. A little bit worse road noise, but still totally fine. You're not, it's not a sports car, you're not yelling at your passenger to have a conversation. It's just a little bit noisier. I like this infotainment. It's a little bit sunken away from you, but I talk about it in a previous video, why that actually makes sense. Your eyes don't have to do as much work focusing from far to near, and it actually feels more premium. I think this is a newer unit that they have, and the bezels aren't quite as thick, the screen's a little bit larger. I love the changes they made here as well to the infotainment controls. 4 quadrants, a little bit more intuitive, I would say, and just like the feel of these buttons, it seems like they took the prior gen and then improved that and tweaked it. It feels a little bit more premium now. But going to how this car drives, which I think is one of the biggest differences to me, it's quite a stark contrast. This feels way sportier. So the steering, as an example, way heavier, feels far more direct. It doesn't have that on-center vagueness in play. But when you're going over these bumps, you really feel the texture. You can really feel that this isn't as soft. It's never harsh and it's never uncomfortable. It's just sportier. So a slight, I think some people would say it is a slight and noticeable downgrade in the ride comfort, but I think in the sportiness and control as you corner and brake, you're not getting as much dive and body roll. It feels so much tighter and much more confidence inspiring as you push it. So these two are substantially different, and the cool thing is, whichever one you choose, you're still getting the Mazda build quality, the Mazda reliability, the Mazda service, their dealer network, and you can't really go wrong. I'd say this is probably more for the younger, active crowd. You know, people like me, I go cycling a lot. I'm never really doing true off-roading, but I'm going on gravel paths here and there, and I also very much appreciate a sportier driving experience, whereas the CX-5 is maybe for a slightly older individual who isn't as focused on outdoorsy stuff and doesn't necessarily need a sportier ride. They want more comfort above all else. But driving these back to back gives me a lot of confidence that I made the right decision for me. But my friends, let me know what you think. Which one would you choose? A Mazda CX-5 or a CX-50? Comment down below. Much love, my friends. Subscribe if you haven't already. And I'll see you all in the next one.